All right, guys, Eddie back with Couch Talk. Welcome back to the show. If it's your first time with me, welcome to the show. I know you guys are all eagerly awaiting my perfect fix to the American voting, election, and campaign system. Obviously, it won't be perfect, but before we get started, please hit like, please hit subscribe, please turn those notifications on. Is the only way I'm gonna break out into this industry, and it really helps me with the YouTube algorithm. I want to preface this by saying that, like I said, this isn't going to be perfect, at least not on the first draft. If you guys, as I'm going over this, if you see something that we could improve, I hope to build this collaboratively with you. If you see some glaring error that I've made or just a huge oversight, definitely bring that to my attention. And if you see just places where we can make modest adjustments that might encompass a greater span of influence, then great. That everything helps. The more information we put on this, the better. So, item number one, I believe that we should pass a law that regulates how elections are run across all 50 states and the District of Columbia and any other provinces and stuff that we've got too. I believe that all of us are sitting here watching votes continue to be counted in Arizona and certain states that are kind of have this backwards policy. I know some states do things some ways, some states do things other ways. Ultimately, what happens is it translates in my mind to living in different places means your vote counts for different amounts. Also, I think that we could just make the whole process much faster. I don't see any reason why we can't have all the answers the day after Election Day. So to that end, I think we should pass a law that says every state does it the same. And what we do at least as far as the national elections are concerned, for congressional seats, for Senate seats, for the presidency, things like that. I think that there's a case that could be made that local elections should perhaps still stay within states' reigns to regulate those, and maybe even be done on a different day. I don't think that it's necessary to do them all on the same day, but I think it's wise to perhaps just make it all the same across the board. Item number two, registration. It's kind of an extra step for us in America. I think that it should be automatic. I think that the DMV should issue each and every person in America a free ID/voter card. If that's your license, also great. If not, no big deal. Great. I think that it should be free the first time. You should get it issued the moment you turn 18. It should be automatically given to you. I believe that there are only 3 reasons that you would ever trigger the need for one of these registration cards. 1 is you turn 18. 2 is you change addresses. 3 is you die. That's it. I think it's simple enough. I may be missing something, Let me know if you guys think of something else that might trigger this ID. But as far as I'm concerned, if none of those 3 things change, that ID should be good forever. And I want to be able to use it. We'll mention how later on in this video. But I think that we should be able to use that voting card with like a little barcode at the bottom, and I think it'll have your picture on it. Will count as your ID as well. But I think we can start moving toward voting online. Number 3, the second Monday in November should be our new voting day. Why it was ever a Tuesday is kind of beyond me. I've looked at a lot of different things. I don't really think that any reason that it was a Tuesday is still reasonable. I think that people will enjoy the 3-day weekend because that Monday should absolutely 100% be a holiday. I don't see any reason why it shouldn't be. I think it should be a compulsory holiday. a paid holiday for anybody who offers any kind of paid time off. And not only that, I think that anybody who works in a business where they would still work on holidays, like infrastructure, firemen, policemen, gas stations, for example, just basically never close. Grocery stores never close. Those businesses should be required to schedule accordingly and to offer each and every person the opportunity to vote in person if they wish, regardless of how long it takes, period. Full stop. I think that'll eliminate any kind of problem with somebody saying they can't get off of work, can't get to the place on time. Plus, we're going to make mail-in ballots and online voting even easier. So there should be no excuses for somebody to not be able to vote. And that's a great thing. I think that the more people vote, the better. The more people that are able to have a voice in our democracy, the better. And I believe that the Constitution bears that out. Number 4, mail-in and absentee ballots can now be conducted online. I think that we should also still allow the old school mail-in ballot, at least for the short term, to see how things go. But I expect for those to be phased out ultimately with the advent of online voting. I don't think that mail-in ballots will really be necessary once we can vote online, but there's still some of the older generations that are less tech savvy, perhaps, if they don't have anybody in their local support group who can help them out, may need to just use the old school mail-in option. But I do think that we can move to an online system, and I believe that it can be verified with a digital picture, kind of like you would verify, anybody who has Apple Pay, or, there's a lot of different online wallets or payment apps. Anybody who uses cryptocurrency, they kind of use a face verification system. And that can be done pretty quickly. It doesn't take long to verify those. And I think that not only increases access, but also increases security. So I think that's a win-win. I don't think that they have to do it that way. If they don't want to, they can still use the old school mail-in ballot, or they can go in person. But if they wish to do it that way, I think that would be an extra way of not only increasing voter participation, but also give them better security and decrease fraud, probably. With that having been said, also, I think that we should effectively make voting mandatory. Now, you don't have to vote. You can vote to abstain to vote. And I think it would be very easy. Now, when I say make it mandatory, I don't really mean mandatory, because I don't believe that we should have any penalty for failure to adhere to this policy. However, I do believe that we should incentivize it. I look across the board, and all the other nations that are democracies now are effectively achieving better voter participation percentages than we are. And I don't particularly like getting beaten as an American. I think we should have the best. I mean, we definitely have the oldest democracy. I want it to be the best. I believe that we should incentivize voter participation with a tax break. Exactly how large, I haven't really thought out, but something not insubstantial, something that will make somebody feel not only great that they were able to participate and that they adhere to their civic duty, but also give them a little kick just for following suit, because I think participation is a good thing. I think we should encourage it. Number 5, with regard to mail-in ballots and electronic voting, I believe that we should open it up specifically 3 weeks before the election date, and I think we should cut it off 3 days before the election day. And the reason for that is I think we want to give them plenty of time to do it, plenty of advance notice, but I also want to have a 3-day buffer window where state employees or volunteers can assist in counting all of those mail-in ballots, if there are any, electronic ballots, if there are any, and then we should be able to have them counted by election day. That way, when election day opens up, the only thing we've got to count are the votes that take place on election day. That way, we will absolutely have a result that night. Number 5. So this one is kind of like probably not as important, but it's, I think, perhaps a good idea to mandate a law that protects voting polls from any kind of voter intimidation. I didn't see much of this last time, but every now and then there's some people that just kind of stand around and they have their guns out just for no reason. I don't understand why they do this. I think it's just intimidation tactics, but it seems silly. I also don't particularly know why someone would be intimidated by that. But that having been said, it seems like a simple enough fix. No guns on because most of the time these voting polls are like conducted on a school or a church or some local community center that has a lot. I think that property should be a guns-free zone. I think that we should staff a security officer to take care of any potential problems to that effect, and that'll solve that issue. It won't solve the issue of people being in the general vicinity, but I mean, how ridiculous do we want to get? We don't want to say no guns in the state, right? So we have to have some kind of limit to it. And I think the private property that is housing, or the public, in this case, school property that's housing the event, the election day poll, should be able to secure its borders. And honestly, I don't, most of these places have a no firearms policy anyway, right? You're not allowed to have a gun on school property no matter what. So, item number 6, the Electoral College, gone. I don't even know why they were ever created. I mean, I do know. I looked up some of the history behind it, but I just don't think it serves a purpose anymore. I think it's basically a rubber stamp. Anyway, I don't know. I think there's only 2 states that don't automatically just vote the same way that their popular votes. And I think it doesn't make sense to try to force. I think the only good thing about it was that it would take, what would otherwise be people that campaigned in these heavy cities, like, New York, D.C., L.A., they would normally go to the heaviest concentrations, the heaviest populations. And then instead, of course, with the Electoral College, they'll end up going to the swing states. But that doesn't really change the favoritism with which the campaign is conducted. All it does is change where it is. And I think that those heavy population centers should have some deference afforded to them because they do have more people, and more people is kind of how we vote in the first place. That's the whole point. Item number 7. And this is kind of a adjunct to the way that I want to do justice reform. And this is, of course, really idealistic, my justice reform program, but we'll get into that later. But along those lines, I don't think that you should lose your vote if you are a felon. I don't think you should lose your vote if you are in jail awaiting trial before you've been convicted. I think that jail should be required to stock, like local jail should be required to stock an electronic voting poll system. And I believe that the only thing that should cause you to lose your vote forever should be a crime against the state directly. So stuff like sedition, treason, anything like that would revoke your vote forever. I'm toying with the idea of if you're a felon, you sacrifice it for a number of years. But honestly, if we really want them to re-enter society, then I think the jail system probably isn't structured to actually encourage them to re-enter society. But if we do, if that's the theory, then we want to give them their vote back. We want to give them their voice back. We want to try to give them a situation where they can re-enter their life and feel like they're actually part of society again. To that end, they should be able to vote. Gerrymandering, gone. I think that Probably it should be run by the Census Bureau, the districting, or maybe an independent commission, maybe. But either way, it should be done based on a series of objective statistics, and it should have absolutely nothing to do with how the majority wants to do it, right? Because I don't think that makes any sense. All right, now let's talk about that's the voting system itself. As far as the way we vote, this is kind of complicated, and I think that our plurality system for the most part works. I think if we make some adjustments to some of the other things, it will lead the way to starting to give other parties the opportunity to kind of, break into the thing. I've been watching some other voting system styles like ranked choice voting, runoffs, things like that. I have not been particularly impressed with any of the various other styles, but I don't think we have enough data on that yet. So I think we need to see more things. Like, obviously in Alaska, I thought it was an abysmal showing. I think it just showed the worst possible result that ranked choice voting could give us. But I think that there are some other examples that haven't been quite so bad. I think there's just not enough data on that yet, and I think I need to do more research before I really pass judgment on that. So I'm going to leave that open-ended for now. But for right now, that's the critique of the voting system as is. And so those are the things that I think that we should add to the voting system. Now let's talk about campaign finance law. In my opinion, the only people that should be able to contribute, to donate to campaigns, are citizens above the age of 18. Individual citizens above the age of 18. Not minors, not companies, not corporate interest groups, not political action committees, not parties to their respective candidates. Just the citizen to the candidate. And not only that, I think that the only people who should, not estates, not trusts, unless it's part of that citizen individual account, but no using trust to double dip, no using trust to continue to donate long after you're dead, none of that. I think that the donations should only be able to contribute to candidates who could potentially govern you. So in other words, like, let's say I live in North Carolina. I should be able to donate to any of the local government guys. I should be able to donate to any of the people for my district. Anybody, who's going to govern me. Anybody who's going to govern me in a statewide capacity, right? So any of the local state Congress, or I think when it comes to national elections, I should be able to contribute to any candidate, because any one of those candidates may end up coming to govern me. So I should be able to donate to senators, for example, senatorial candidates, for example, in other states, because those senators will govern me as a consequence if they get into office. But what I don't think I should be able to donate to is like a sheriff 7 counties over, because he or she will have no effect on my life. I don't think I should be able to donate to the governor of Alaska if I live in Texas, right? Should have no effect on my life. And like I said, I don't feel that I should be able to. Now, I feel like campaign contribution, I feel like we should be able to contribute to the party, but that the party should not be able to contribute to candidates. So I feel like the parties should be able to, manage their conventions, to formulate campaign strategies, to organize their party, to organize the manner in which their party is manifested inside the Senate, inside the Congress, and stuff like that, but not to donate directly to a candidate. So that way nobody can use the party to siphon money back through to the candidate, where they just kind of double dip again. And that was basically the loophole with which PACs could basically donate infinite money to candidates, and I just don't think that's appropriate. And I think not only will that make other parties start to become viable, because there won't be this infinite donation to the party and those parties will maintain their control, but also I think that it will reduce the overall amount of money that we spend on campaigns, because our money is spent almost better anywhere else, almost. So I think that would just be overall a good thing if we reduce the overall amount of money that's put into campaign. Like I mentioned, $17 billion was dumped into the midterm just to figure out who's going to be in office, to see if they can do something productive. So that's ridiculous. So that is my hope. My hope is to eliminate all those loopholes through which we can get infinite donations to candidates. All these loopholes. I think that, maybe the individual limit should be raised a little bit, so that you can, in fact, donate to who you want to donate. But it shouldn't be this infinite loop where we can donate whatever we want to anybody. On a more, logistical sense, I feel like all the debating should be done by the time the first votes are cast. So by the time the mail-in ballot begins, by the time the electronic ballot begins, and in that way, no one will have missed it, right? Like a lot of the situation in Pennsylvania this last time was Fetterman, finally agreed to have a debate, but it was long after, most of his support group, even the ones that were normally going to be on the fence, had already voted. So he kind of got away with, he demonstrated his probably inability to actually execute the office well yet, but he did it after all the votes were in. So he kind of, avoided that public scrutiny. I don't think that public officials should be able to avoid that scrutiny. I think that debates should be required of any candidate on the national level. So any congressman, any senator, congressman, congresswoman, any senator, any president, so forth and so on. And I think it should be accessible to every party, for every finalist, not like the primaries, but every finalist should be not only allowed to debate, so if there's a presidential debate, it should be Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Green Party, Independent, whatever. Everybody should be allowed to debate. Maybe break it up in a couple of different zones, because that may get large, but only for the presidential candidates that have the ability to run in all 50 states, things like that. Real finalists. And now the last thing that I considered, and I'm not sure about this, but and I'd love to hear what you guys have to think about this. I'm thinking about term limits. I'm wondering if we shouldn't impose maximum of, 1, maybe 2 terms on everybody, because I note that these civil servants, they get into office and they spend literally half of their energy trying to get reelected. And I don't think that does the American people justice. I'm not sure how much it should be limited, but I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say. So please post some comments below. Let me know what you think. I think this is a good start, though. I think this is a good skeleton toward a more egalitarian election system, and one that offers true access to every American citizen. Let me know what you guys think, and we'll catch you next time on Couch Talk.